So, good morning everyone. So, till now we have covered nouns and pronouns. I hope these topics are clear. So, let us start with a new topic of grammar, that is articles. Moving on. Now, what is an article? The word a, or, an and the are called articles. They come before nouns, adjectives and adverbs. A or an is called indefinite article because it does not point out any definite or particular person or thing. The is called definite article because it points out some definite or particular person or thing. For example, a doctor is coming. So, it means any doctor, nobody in particular. Now, next example, Raj saw the doctor he met yesterday. So, here the meaning is a particular doctor whom he met yesterday and not just any doctor. Now, the indefinite article is used before singular countable nouns. For example, a book, an orange, a girl, you can say a pen and so on. Now, the definite article is used before singular countable nouns, plural countable nouns and uncountable nouns. So, here the book would represent singular countable noun, the books would represent plural countable noun, because books are countable, and the milk would represent uncountable noun. And so on. Now, an is used before a word beginning with a vowel sound. Now, first of all, tell me what are vowels. Now, A, E, I, O and U. These are all your vowels and the rest letters are your consonants. So, an is used before a word beginning with a vowel sound. For example, an orange, an enemy, an umbrella and so on. Next, before a word beginning with H, but H is not pronounced and therefore, the beginning sound of the word becomes a vowel sound. So, for example, an hour, an honest man. So, here in an honest man, the word H is silent, hence the beginning sound of the word is an O sound, which is a vowel. So, an honest man. So, therefore, an will be used before honest man. Moving on, A is used before a word beginning with a consonant sound. For example, a woman, a horse, a man, etc. Before a word beginning with the consonant sound of Vayu, even though it may begin with a vowel letter. For example, a university, a union, a useful thing, a unicorn, a European, etc. Now, A is also used before a word beginning with the consonant sound of W, even though it may begin with a vowel letter. For example, a 1 rupee note, a one-eyed man and so on. Now, next, usage of indefinite articles. So, the indefinite article is usually used to indicate a noun that is used for the first time and does not refer to a particular person or thing. For example, there lived a king in France. The king was blind. So, here basically we are introducing someone. So, here we are giving the introduction of king, hence indefinite article will be used before king. Now, let us take another example. Somebody call an officer. So, this sentence implies reference to any officer. We do not need a specific officer. Instead, we need any officer who is available. Now, indefinite article is used to single out an individual as the representative of a class when it conveys the sense any. That is, it is used in the sense of a class talking about everyone, talking about whole species. So, basically in that sense it is used. So, now let us take an example. A bird has 2 wings. So, in this sentence, the sentence uses the noun bird to single it out as the representative of the class birds. The sentence conveys meaning that every bird has 2 wings. Now, next example, a cow is a useful animal, and so on. Next rule, the indefinite article is used to indicate one, that is singular number. For example, Shubhi gave me a mango. So, here a mango means one mango. When I was at the zoo, I saw an elephant. So, an elephant means one elephant. Now, further, indefinite article is used when a proper noun is used in the sense of a common noun. For example, a Daniel comes to judgment. So, here a Daniel means a very wise person. Moving on, the indefinite article is used before words that denote time, certain quantity, measurement, profession, religion, nationality, exclamation, etc. For example, Raj goes home twice a week. Sheena is a teacher in St. Thomas School. What a fine day. Now, some other usage of indefinite articles are: the indefinite article is generally used with words like half and quite. Let us take an example. The box weighs 7.5 kilos. Raj bought half a kilo of rice from the market. This is quite a good film. Now, moving on, we will discuss usage of definite article. So, here are some of the uses of definite articles. First, the definite article is used when we talk about a particular person or thing or one already referred to. For example, the book you want is out of print. So, which book? The one you want. So, here we are talking about a particular book. Next example, there lived a king in France. The king was a magnanimous person. So, here the is used to refer to the king we already introduced or talked about before. So, moving on, next use, it is used before a singular noun when a singular noun is meant to represent a whole class. For example, the cobra is a poisonous snake. So, here cobra is representing the whole class of cobras, hence the sentence implies that all the cobras are poisonous. Another example, the cow is a useful animal. The rose is the sweetest of all flowers. Moving on, the definite article is used before certain adjectives, that is adjectives of quality, to indicate a class. For example, the rich can afford a life of luxury. So, here the sentence is talking about a particular class of people who are rich. Hence, the definite article the should be used before adjective rich. Another sentence, the poor and the oppressed are the ones who suffer the most. Now, next use, the definite article is used before adjectives in superlative degree. For example, he is the oldest man in our neighborhood. Now, next, the definite article is used before an adjective that qualifies a proper noun. For example, the great Ajanta caves are famous for their frescoes. Now, here in this sentence, the proper noun Ajanta caves is your proper noun over here. So, here in this sentence, the proper noun Ajanta caves is qualified by the adjective great. Moving on. Next use, the definite article is used to make a proper noun common. For example, Mumbai is the London of the East. Next, before an adverb with comparative. For example, the more they get, the more they want. Another, the more the merrier. Moving on. Before an adjective in the comparative degree when not more than two persons or things are being compared. For example, John is the wiser of the two. Another use, before a common noun to give it the meaning of an abstract noun. For example, at last the father in him was stirred. So, it means the fatherly love in him was stirred. Now, moving on, it is also used with ordinals. Now, what are ordinals? First of all, tell me. Ordinals. So, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So, these numbers are your ordinals. So, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on, these are your ordinals. And cardinals are numbers like 1, 2, 3, and so on. These are called your cardinals, and your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on, these are your ordinals. So, definite article is used with ordinals, that is before numeral adjectives showing order. For example, all the students of the 5th class were absent. He was the first man to arrive. The 9th chapter of the book is very interesting. So, here 9th is your ordinal, and hence the is used before 9th. Moving on, it is used in place of possessive adjectives before the names of parts of the body. For example, I struck him on the head. So, if it was written I struck him on his head, so that would be totally wrong. I struck him on the head is your correct statement. Moving on, before the names of directions when such nouns are preceded by prepositions. For example, Captain Cook went to the east. So, east is your direction, hence before it the is used. Now, next, definite article is used before names of musical instruments. For example, he can play the flute. Samir plays the guitar very well. Now, next, it is used before names of things unique of their kind, like the sun, the earth, the moon, the sky, the sea, the ocean, the prime minister, the king, and so on. Now, another usage of definite article, it is used before an epithet attached to a personal proper name. For example, Alexander the Great. So, here the great, so here great is your epithet, and hence article the is used before great. Similarly, George the 5th, and so on. Now, before the name of a nation and sometimes before the name of a community or a class of people. For example, the Hindus, the French, the Sikhs, the Jains, etc. Now, it is also used before same, and after both, all, and half. For example, Sweetie and Pari went to the same school since kindergarten. Both the students belong to the same class. All the world knows this. Half the apples are rotten. Now, moving on, the definite article is used before certain proper names of noun. These lists are very important, keep this in mind. So, it is used before oceans and seas, for example, the Black Sea, the Atlantic Ocean, etc. Then before rivers, for example, the Yamuna, the Nile, etc. Then canals, for example, the Suez Canal, the Grand Canal, etc. Now, before deserts, for example, the Sahara Desert, the Thar Desert, and so on. Now, before group of islands, for example, the West Indies, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and so on. Then next, chain of mountain ranges, for example, the Himalayas, the Alps, and so on. Gulfs and plains, for example, the Persian Gulf, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, etc. Now, before winds and seasons, for example, the winter, the monsoon, the west wind, and so on. Now, it is also used before holy books and scriptures, for example, the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Bible, and so on. Now, here is an exception, keep this in mind. If it is written like this, Valmiki's, but we always say Valmiki's Ramayana, Homer's Iliad, etc. Now, next, famous towers, well-known buildings and monuments. So, definite article is used before famous towers, well-known buildings and monuments, for example, the Taj Mahal, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, etc. Now, before the names of ships, aeroplanes and newspapers, for example, the Vikrant, the Indian Express, the Times of India, and so on. Moving on, a very few names of countries which include words like republic and kingdom and so on, for example, the Irish Republic, the Ukraine, the Netherlands, and so on. Now, definite article is also used before certain proper names of acronyms, for example, the NATO, the WHO, and so on. Now, it is also used before names of important events like the French Revolution, the Great War, the Reformation, and so on. Now, moving on, let us start with another topic, that is omission of articles. Now, the article is omitted before proper, material and abstract nouns. So, this rule we already studied in nouns. So, let us revise this rule all over again. So, for example, gold is a costly metal. So, gold is your material noun. Hence, article will not be used before gold. Next, example, virtue is its own reward. So, virtue is your abstract noun. Hence, again article be omitted before virtue. Next, honesty is the best policy. Again, honesty is your abstract noun. Now, next, exception, article is used before material noun and abstract noun when used in a specific sense. For example, the non-violence showed by Mahatma Gandhi was exemplary. Another example, the wisdom of Birbal is great. Would you pass me the sugar? And so on. Now, next, articles are omitted before most proper nouns except those referred to earlier, namely names of people, names of continents, countries, capes, cities, towns, names of individual mountains, individual islands, lakes, hills, and so on. Now, moving on, before days, months, subject of arts and science, diseases, articles are omitted. For example, January is a cold month. Geometry is the toughest subject I have ever studied. So, we will not say the geometry is the toughest subject I have ever studied. No, we generally avoid using article before subjects. Now, articles are also omitted before meal times like dinner, supper, breakfast, and so on. Let us take an example, dinner is ready. So, we won't say the dinner is ready, that will be wrong usage of English. Dinner is ready. Another example, what time do you have lunch? Moving on, we do not use articles before languages. For example, we are studying the English, that will be totally wrong. We are studying English. They speak Punjabi at home, and so on. Now, articles are omitted before school, college, university, church, bed, hospital, prison, and so on, when these places are visited or used for their primary purpose. So, primary purpose is important, keep this in mind. Let us take an example. We go to church on Sundays. Another, prison is a place where fundamental rights are restricted to punish criminals. My uncle is still in hospital. Now, here comes an important exception. However, if these places are used for some other purpose other than your primary one, so keep this in mind, they are used for some other purpose other than the primary one, then article can be used before them. For example, I am going to meet my friend in the church. So, here church is not used for its primary purpose, that is for prayers. Instead, it is used as a meeting place, hence article is used before church. Now, next example, Sam and John were fighting in the school. So, again school is not used for its primary purpose, which is studying. Instead, they are using it for fighting, and hence article is used before school. Now, moving on, articles are not used before nouns, showing a position that can be held at one time by one person only. For example, Mr. Banerjee became the principal of the college in 1995. So, this sentence will be totally wrong. Instead, the correct statement would be Mr. Banerjee became principal of the college in 1995. Another example, he was elected chairman of the board. Moving on, articles are not used before names of relations like father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, and so on. For example, father has returned home, aunt wants to see you, and so on. So, we will not use article before father. So, using an article before such relations will be wrong. So, that is it for today. We will continue further with more rules and also some practice questions in the next lecture.